In the next couple minutes, we're going to look at what's believable and not believable, what's likable and not likable based on the body language of these folks. First, let me tell you, I don't care how you vote. This is not political. This is simply about body language. So let's go.
And now you're paying more for everything. They are the reason for that. They have shut down our national sovereignty by allowing our border to be wide open.
Now with Ron DeSantis, there's something awkward about his body language. Anyone that's ever watched him for an extended period of time knows what I'm talking about. For the party that he represents, he says all the right things. He does most of the right things. The problem is in his delivery. In this clip we just saw, you'll notice that his voice is not low, it's not deep, it's not authoritative, it's not commanding in the least.
So please spare me the crocodile tears for these people. They need to change what's going on. And where's Joe Biden? He's completely missing in action from leadership.
Just like in this clip, he tends to say things that sound powerful, but when you watch him say it and you listen to his voice, it doesn't come across as authoritative or powerful. Now pay attention to this next part. Watch his eyebrows raise up as he draws attention to his face because he wants you to hear what he's going to say, because unlike what he was just talking about being upset about, he's now going to tell you things he's happy about and proud about.
Now, I can tell you this, as governor of Florida, we cut taxes, we ran surpluses, we've paid down over 25% of our state debt, and I vetoed wasteful spending when it came to my desk. And as your president...
In the clip that you just saw, his illustrators, which are his hand signals and the way that he motions with his hands, they are right on point because he's finally saying something he's comfortable with. In this next clip, he's going to be attacked by Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley has some of her own issues. She's very passionate. Sometimes people say that she comes across as very well rehearsed and not truly believing what she is saying. However, what she is about to embark on with Ron DeSantis, she totally and completely believes in. Her illustrators are on point, her moderators are on point, her regulators. We'll go through what all that means here in just a minute. Watch Ron DeSantis and listen to him. He doesn't know what to do with what she is saying, so he giggles, he laughs. Listen to this.
Ron DeSantis is against fracking. He's against drilling. He's been against, you did it. He always talks about what happens on day one. You better watch out, because what happens on day two is when you're in trouble. Day two in Florida, you banned fracking, you banned offshore drilling, you did it on federal lands, and you took green subsidies.
So he's shaking his head. He's saying that is not true. He's grinning and his eyes are clamped shut. This is indicative of someone who's trying to dismiss what is being said. If you don't have anything authoritative to say about what someone is remarking about you, oftentimes we will sometimes make the mistake of laughing. Giggling and laughing never looks authoritative and never looks powerful. Someone who giggles doesn't look in control. The problem is the natural instinct of a human being when you are embarrassed is to either get angry or to somehow look to dismiss what is embarrassing you. The easiest way that he's come up with is to giggle and to laugh, squeeze his eyes closed, letting in less of his surroundings, and to shake his head no, and he's mouthing that is not true. But the giggling and laughing is not authoritative, and actions like this don't necessarily win over a base that's looking for power, strength, and authority. We'll get to more of Nikki Haley in just a minute, but first I want to talk for a moment about Vivek Ramaswami. Look at this picture. Notice that his hair is extremely tall. Let me show you a picture from the first GOP debate. Notice how his hair is much closer to his head. It's much more of a traditional look. The first debate in August, he came across primarily as very pompous, very arrogant, quite frankly, somewhat immature to the very base that he's trying to win over. And so you can tell by the way that he acts here, and you can tell by the words that he's using, that he has now been listening to his coaching that has told him that doesn't work for a big chunk of the base that you're trying to win over. So what he's done in this particular debate is he stopped a lot of the pompous remark. He stopped a lot of the personal attacks on people. You won't hear that as much in this debate. So what's happened is that has sort of reined in some of his ammunition. So what he does instead, to give the appearance that he will not be controlled because he is not traditional, he's not a conformist, is he does something a little bit bigger and different with his hair. Now, for people of his age group, this is totally normal to do something a little bit outlandish or something a little large or a little bit eye-catching with your hair is completely normal. It's not normal for a traditional base of Gen X and baby boomers and people like this. And there's no way that he walked out on stage not realizing that his hair was a couple inches taller than it was before. But again, this is simply for a way to him say, I'm not a conformist, I'm not going to conform, I'm somewhat rebellious, I'm not going to fall into the mold of everybody else on the stage, I'm going to do something different. And for his generation and the people around his age group, this is totally normal.
I agree with some of what he said, for sure. I like the spirit of it. I'll say that I don't have a lot of patience for the union bosses. I think that's where he and I actually have a common view. I do have a lot of sympathy for the workers, however. People are going through real hardship in this country. I've been through hardship growing up. My father stared down layoffs at GE under Jack Welch's tenure.
Now, Vivek really speaks what's on his mind. He comes across as passionate, and he comes across as saying exactly what he is thinking, which is a lot different than what we saw with Ron DeSantis. The other piece of that you have to be very careful of is sometimes that comes across as out of control or a little bit of a loose cannon. And again, even though he's trying to bring that demographic into this group, the primary body of the folks that are in this group are much more traditional. So he's trying to kind of walk a fence here, and he does a pretty good job. He says a lot of the right things, and he says them in a lot of the right ways, and he's not insulting anybody this time around. Now I'm going to do a little bit of Vivek along with Nikki Haley. Now, Nikki Haley's issue is at times she has a lot of information. It's almost like a dump truck, and she's trying to dump out all of this relevant information into a very small area of space. And she's very wise in that she uses her illustrators, which are her hand motions and her movements that go along with syllables as she speaks. She uses these really well. But in this case, when she gets a little bit wound up and a little bit emotional, she tends to speak pretty quickly. So sometimes those illustrators and regulators, which kind of slow people down or get them to sort of play correctly with the game, sometimes those will be a little bit jumbled, but she does a pretty good job here. So watch this interaction here between her and Vivek Ramaswami about the app called TikTok.
This is infuriating because TikTok is one of the most dangerous social media apps that we could have. And what you've got, I honestly, every time I hear you, I feel a little bit dumber for what you say. Because I can't believe that here you've got a TikTok situation. What they're doing is these 150 million people are on TikTok. That means they can get your contacts, they can get your financial information, they can get your emails, they can get text messages, they can get all of these things.
This is very important for our party.
Exactly what they're doing.
What I love about this interaction is that Nikki Haley, again, her regulators are right on point, but then when Vivek starts to chime in to challenge her, she uses what are called either regulators or moderators. When you regulate something or moderate something, it means you're controlling something. So what she'll do is she'll use the pinch motion. She'll sometimes make something very concise. It means this can be a couple of different things. This can be you're making somebody small when you're speaking to them, or it can mean that you're being very, very specific about something. She tends to use the specific version a lot in her speech. And when she's doing this, Vivek comes in and begins to sort of try to speak against what she's talking about, and you'll notice that her regulator, she'll begin to regulate him like this, pushing him away, stopping him. This is sometimes called a regulator, sometimes called a moderator. Either way, you're trying to control something. She'll use lots of different motions here. You'll notice when she turns her hand like this, she's using the display like, behold, look what's happening over here with this guy. And then when she wants him to be quiet or to stop, she'll turn her hand this way to regulate the conversation.
Very important for our party, and I'm going to say
you've gone and you've helped China make medicines in China, not America. You're now wanting kids to go and get on the social media that's dangerous for all of us. You went and you were in.
Vivek will often use the authoritative finger. Most politicians, most people who do public speaking will not use this. They will use this or this or this. You've probably seen this with the Bill Clinton. But Vivek will often use the I'm in control, let me instruct you on something. That's the finger up thing. He'll use that when he's trying to regain control, as though I have something important to say, you need to listen. And then when he can't get through, he literally looks at her, grins, and does one of these.
Business with the Chinese that gave Hunter Biden $5 million, we can't trust you.
Which is the display to you to say, can you believe this? I can't believe what I'm hearing.
We can't trust you. We can't have TikTok and
I think that
Now let's talk briefly about Doug Christie. This guy, unfortunately, I don't know that he should be there. He has zero chance. He has about as much of a chance of winning this as Doug Borgum or as any of the other guys. That truly, honestly, they're polling so low, they're really just taking up space. The biggest problem with Chris Christie is he fails to understand that even though a lot of people do not like Donald Trump, he is the far and away favorite of the Republican Party. He's in the 56 to 60% approval rate, where most others are in single digits. It's enormous. And I think he fails to see that. So he tries to look strong. He tries to look powerful by pushing back against that. The problem that he's run into in both of these debates is he seems to be much more known for who he's against, being Donald Trump, and what he's against instead of what he is for. So he doesn't speak as much about what he wants to do and things he wants to fix. Instead, he complains about other people not being there, other people not doing things the way that other people have done things and the way that they have spoken. And primarily speaking to this group of voters, they want to know what you are for and less about what you are against. And he's made his entire campaign about being against Donald Trump, which again, whether you like it or not, is the far and away favorite of this particular category of folks.
We need law and order back in our suburbs. People are threatened there. We need it in our rural areas. People feel threatened there. And we need it in Washington, D.C. also. And Donald Trump should be here to answer for that, but he's not. And I want to look at that camera right now and tell you, Donald, I know you're watching. You can't help yourself. I know you're watching, okay? And you're not here tonight. Not because of polls and not because of your indictments. You're not here tonight because you're afraid of being on the stage and defending your record.
He's going to try to do something here that he can't really do. He's going to try to sort of channel a little bit of Donald Trump. If you remember back in 2016, he was always giving people names. Lion Ted, when he was talking about Ted Cruz. He talks about Sleepy Joe. He was talking about Low Energy Jeb. He would give nicknames to people. So Christie, with basically no chance, is trying to somehow create some headlines by giving Donald Trump a nickname, Donald Duck. It's not funny. The base that really wants him, which is most of the people in the party, they don't find it funny. So it doesn't work. It comes across flat, and it comes across really as pompous and arrogant, and it just doesn't work.
You're ducking these things. And let me tell you what's going to happen. You keep doing that, no one up here is going to call you Donald Trump anymore. We're going to call you Donald Duck.
All right, now we're going to briefly look at Mike Pence. Again, a guy that is not polling really well. He's coming after a completely different segment of the population. Vivek Ramaswami is coming after the young folks that he connects with. He's energetic. He's a little bit on the edge. He can't be controlled. He's a nonconformist. And then, of course, you have Mike Pence, who is very much traditional, very calm. He really wants to be the adult in the room. You don't see him get upset. You don't see him get even overheated, which unfortunately plays against him to a base of people that want to see strength. They want Ronald Reagan. They don't want somebody who's so stoic that they don't seem to show much emotion. But he's doing his best, and he's intentionally trying to be the grown-up in the room.
When the Linn-Mar Community Schools in Iowa had a policy where you had to have a permission slip from your parents to get a Tylenol, but you could get a gender transition plan without notifying your parents, I weighed in with a foundation. That's not bad policy. That's crazy.
All right, we're down to the last two. Tim Scott, this is a guy that everyone who ever hears him speak, depending on your politics, kind of likes this guy. The problem we're running into with him in this debate is that he tends to not come across as strong. He comes across at times as passionate. He's very knowledgeable, but he's extremely likable, which is a double-edged sword in this party. You have to be able to be likable, but you also have to project strength.
Black families survived slavery. We survived poll taxes and literacy tests. We survived discrimination being woven into the laws of our country. What was hard to survive was Johnson's Great Society, where they decided to put money, where they decided to take the black father out of the household to get a check in the mail, and you can now measure that in unemployment, in crime, in devastation. If you want to restore hope, you've got to restore the family, restore capitalism, and put Americans back at work together as one American family.
And the problem here that Tim is running into is that he projects kindness, he projects goodness, he projects hope, all the wonderful things that check off a lot of the boxes that you want in a representative like this. But the thing he doesn't seem to check off as much is strength, or even the ability to be authoritative in the space that he's in. But his words are great, and he's a very likable guy. Now, the guy that I say for last is Doug Burgum, and it's not that I think that he is worse than anybody, because in my opinion, I think that in this group of people, he's one of the most qualified, he's one of the smartest, and he has a lot of the right things to say. In other words, when he speaks to an issue, it's because he has experience. When he says things, they actually make sense. The problem that we have here is multifaceted. Doug Burgum, first of all, he's from a state that's very small and carries no weight really on the West Coast or the East Coast or any of the major metropolitan areas. In addition to that, this is a guy that has more words and information to speak than you will ever be able to remember. And the problem that he runs into with this is that the moderators don't give him much time. He's kind of an outcast on the side. He's not really paid attention to. So when he speaks, he vomits so much information, and it's good, accurate information, but he releases so much of it that no one remembers it. He has some of the situation that Nikki Haley has, in that she has a lot of information and she uses big regulators and moderators and things like this to get her point across, and she's very passionate. Doug Burgum, on the other hand, doesn't really come across as super passionate. He comes across as almost like he has one facial expression, and he has a very monotone voice, and he speaks very quickly, all of which are difficult to sell to a major audience of people. You have to have a little bit more aggressive stance at times to be taken seriously, and his biggest aggressive stance is that he will use illustrators like this and like this to make his words and his concepts larger. Other than that, he just simply actually gives you more information than you'll find in the Encyclopedia Britannica in about this much time, and unfortunately you don't remember any of it after he has said it. And it's not that it's not good information, it's that there's so much information, very little time to receive it, and he's not saying it in a way that anyone is going to remember.
They have a level playing field. They can outcompete anyone in the world. But this is part of the larger issue that we're talking about here, which is we're in a Cold War with China. The Biden administration won't admit that. But we're also in an economic war through what we're doing with agriculture and energy. And we're also in a war with them relative to cyber war. We get attacked every day in North Dakota, every state, every school district, our tribes, all being attacked every day by either China, Russia, Iran, or North Korea. And now we've got a Biden administration whose whole policy is appeasement. They're out there, creating the world, making it less safe. $6 billion they traded for 5 people. They've just now set a price.
So I hope that this brief look into some of these folks' likability and some of these folks' challenges and some of these folks' strong points, I'm hoping this was helpful. And as these debates continue and as the stage gets smaller and smaller with less people, we'll be able to spend more time with each person as it goes on. But again, I'm hoping this is helpful for you. And if it was, please hit that bell, like, and subscribe, and be sure to watch one of these other videos. There's a lot of good body language and psychology on this channel. See you next time.